3. Teacher fires gun in school.
What?
In 2018, a teacher from Georgia was arrested after firing a shot from his handgun.
What it is, guys? It's your boy BlastphamousHD. People get themselves jacked up all the time in embarrassingly terrible ways, you know? I don't know about there's any embarrassing ways that I think I've ever died before. Luckily enough, you know, still here.
Zoom call tragedy. Back in August 2021, a 21-year-old mother from Florida was shot to death by her 2-year-old son.
What?
The child found the gun in their home and proceeded to play with it. Shamaya Lynn was on a Zoom call with some coworkers when, out of nowhere, shots were fired. According to prosecutors, the boy apparently discovered the weapon inside his Paw Patrol backpack on the floor of his parents' bedroom. It wasn't secured properly, and the safety also wasn't on, allowing the little boy to wreak havoc with what he probably assumed was just a realistic toy. Shamaya was shot in the head, and she unfortunately didn't survive her injuries. Colleagues on the Zoom
This isn't
call
embarrassing ways people have died. This is just sad. This just sucks.
As they literally just watched her get killed in front of them. Shamaya's partner and the father of her son, 22-year-old Viandre Avery, wasn't home at the time of the incident. But he got to the residence shortly after everything happened and also called the authorities to report the grim scene he found. He told the dispatcher, "There's blood everywhere," after explaining that he'd just gotten home. Even though police believed Avery wasn't present when the shooting occurred, he was consequently charged with failure to securely store a firearm as well as manslaughter.
Damn!
He was arrested and is currently being held without bond at the
What type
Seminole
of
County
shit?
Jail. Unfortunately, no trial date has been set, so Avery has yet to be sentenced for his involvement in the crime. As tragic as this case is, it could have been avoided with proper handling and storing of the weapon. 7.
You didn't even do
Shots
nothing.
fired. In late 2022, a man from Shaftesbury, Vermont was charged with reckless endangerment after firing his gun inside his residence and endangering the lives of 3 victims. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but 31-year-old Gerardo Zelaya Granados acted in blatant disregard for the safety of the people around him. According to reports from the Vermont State Police Department, he shot his firearm into the ground and air inside his home, while others, including a young child, were there to witness his behavior in disbelief. Authorities responded to the scene after receiving multiple reports of a weapons offense. Deputies, troopers, officers from the Bennington Police Department, and state game wardens all
Damn, this
tried
shit
to
dirty as
locate
hell.
Gerardo at his home. For hours, law enforcement held the perimeter of the property and cleared the scene in order to avoid an escalated situation. Finally, at about 6:30 p.m. on November 26, 2022, they made contact with Gerardo. The man was immediately placed under arrest, and thankfully he didn't fight back or cause another scene. Afterward, Gerardo was transported to the town's local barracks to be processed. He was issued his conditions of release and was held at the Marble Valley Correctional Center on a $200 bail. At his arraignment on charges of 3 counts of reckless endangerment and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, more information was revealed about the situation and why everything happened. Based on a court affidavit, the police were dispatched to Gerardo's home after learning that 2 people were attempting to hide in a neighbor's garage. They claimed to have been threatened. Apparently, those same individuals visited Gerardo's home from New York to purchase a PlayStation 5 console through Facebook Marketplace. Shortly after their arrival, Gerardo became agitated and started shooting rounds from his .30-30 rifle and handgun. A 3rd person involved in the matter was later found by police. The affidavit also says that the 3 individuals gave fake names to the authorities and were trying to sell marijuana to the suspect as well. So it's unclear if the story about the PlayStation is real or not. Regardless, if convicted on all counts, Gerardo could face up to 8 years in prison. 6. Hostage situation. In April 2016, 2 suspects were arrested in Newington, Connecticut, after taking a hostage during an armed robbery at a 7-Eleven. The situation went down at around 2 a.m. at the convenience store located on Willard Avenue, and it ended 1 hour later. Police explained to Fox 61
Where's the
that
Discord
when they
link?
got to the scene, they saw two armed
Oh,
men
well,
and
don't
the
be putting it
store's
up.
clerk inside. Officers said they noticed the clerk was bleeding from his head and was being held at gunpoint by the suspects. Investigators determined that the worker had sustained injuries after being hit by the criminal's shotgun. There was apparently a customer inside the building too, but they only received minor injuries. After getting a handle on the situation, Connecticut State Police assisted Newington officers in forming a perimeter. A short standoff between law enforcement and the robbers ensued, but in the end, the suspects left the convenience store holding a white towel and turned themselves in. The criminals were identified as 18-year-old Guillermo Casada and 21-year-old Albert Gonzalez. They were charged with reckless endangerment, criminal use of a firearm, conspiracy to commit robbery, and more. Unfortunately, even though this case happened back in 2016, it's not entirely clear what the end result was. 5. Worst bus driver ever. Most parents think their children are perfectly safe on a school bus. But in Franklin County, Alabama, this belief was shattered in late 2022 when a bus driver was caught driving erratically while transporting 40 kids. Sheriff Shannon Oliver reported that deputies received a concerning call about a school bus early in the morning on September 16th. Before authorities arrived to handle the situation, a concerned motorist apparently pulled in front of the bus to force the driver to stop. That same individual then boarded the vehicle, assuming that the driver was experiencing some type of medical emergency. But instead, they discovered something far worse. The driver was identified as 58-year-old Rhonda Barksdale. She was given a field sobriety test when authorities got there, but she failed and was immediately arrested. Thankfully, none of the children on the bus were hurt. The woman's blood was tested in order to determine the amount of alcohol in her system, as well as any other substances she may have ingested before jumping behind the wheel. And a month later, the test results showed that she had ethanol, amphetamine, clonazepam, and zolpidem in her bloodstream when the incident occurred. Clonazepam is a sedative that's commonly used to treat seizures, anxiety, and panic disorders. Zolpidem is also a sedative that helps treat insomnia, and according to drugfree.org, an individual can feel tired after taking the medication, especially if they're a woman. It's suggested by the drug manufacturer to wait 4 hours before doing anything that may require them to stay alert, like driving a school bus full of innocent children. To make matters worse, Rhonda also had an alcohol level of 0.09, which is well over the legal limit for bus drivers in Franklin County. 10 days after Rhonda was arrested, the school superintendent sent a notice to the county's Board of Education suggesting that the irresponsible driver be fired. And on that very same day, Rhonda was officially terminated. She was also handed 40 counts of reckless endangerment, a count for every child on the bus, as well as charges of driving under the influence. She pleaded not guilty on September 21st, and she's requested her case go to trial. And so the situation is ongoing. 4. Attempted hit and run. In July 2021, a man from Burley, Idaho, was arrested for trying to run over a little boy in his pickup truck after getting into an argument with some kids at a skate park.
Hey, look, that's understandable, man. Some of these kids nowadays ain't shit. You know what I mean?
The Cassia County Sheriff's Office booked 26-year-old Michael Anthony Guizar into jail after the incident. He was handed charges of felony injury to a child, assault with intent to commit murder, reckless driving, and aggravated assault. Local station KTVB interviewed 11-year-old Nathaniel Wallace, and he explained that he'd accidentally run into another kid
that's weird.
riding his bike with a friend. The group
Yeah,
of
Matt
children
Hedges,
and
that's weird.
Wallace's friend swore at
Who
each
drinks?
other before a grown man came up to them. That same man, believed to be Guizar, chased Wallace and his pal to the opposite end of the skate park before getting into his vehicle and driving toward them. Surveillance video from the skate park showed Guizar's pickup swerving off the road towards Wallace's direction, driving over grass and even sidewalk. Wallace can be seen jumping from his bike to avoid getting struck by the truck, and he runs away seconds before it crushes the bicycle beneath its wheels. If Wallace hadn't fled, Guizar could have severely injured or even killed him. And so, Wallace and his friend ran to a nearby house to ask for help, where occupants reported the crime to the police. The public helped authorities identify Guizar as they were tasked with tracking down the driver. Luckily, neither of the young boys were injured during the incident, but they're likely to have long-lasting trauma. A year later, in August 2022, a Cassia County judge sentenced Guizar to serve 12 years in state prison, with 3 years fixed for his aggravated assault charge. He was given an additional 180 days in jail for his misdemeanor count of reckless driving, too. Guizar was also issued an undisclosed amount of fees and court costs for both criminal counts. 3. Teacher fires gun in school.
What?
In early 2018, a teacher from Georgia was arrested after firing a shot from his handgun out of his classroom's window. Nobody was wounded in the incident at Dalton High School except for a female student who hurt her ankle while running through the hallway. Many students were terrified after hearing the gunshot, causing a panic. The shooting took place around 85 miles, 137 kilometers north of Atlanta, and it heightened the already tense discussion regarding whether or not guns should be allowed inside school buildings, in the wake of Parkland, Florida mass shooting, which happened only 2 weeks earlier. According to police spokesman Bruce Frazier, the school's 53-year-old social studies teacher, Randall Davidson, refused to let students come into his classroom during his planning period. Some kids complained about this, so the principal tried to unlock the teacher's door with a key, prompting Davidson to fire his handgun. Immediately afterward, Dalton High School went into lockdown, and the police came to evacuate the area surrounding the classroom Davidson had barricaded himself inside. It took about 45 minutes to convince the teacher to surrender, but he was finally placed in police custody without further incident. Frazier told CNN that there wasn't any evidence that Davidson wanted to harm anybody, but he'd still illegally shot a firearm inside a classroom. The teacher was given charges of carrying a weapon on school grounds, disrupting a public school, aggravated assault, possession of a gun during commission of a crime, and reckless conduct. During his trial, Davidson explained to the jury that he'd been seriously contemplating ending his life on the day of the incident, and that the school's resource officer was able to talk him out of that decision. He expressed remorse for his actions and apologized in court for them. But in the end, he was sentenced to 2 years behind bars and was...
Should've got way more than that. I'm gonna do some shit like that, nigga. Do that shit at home, nigga. What you doing this shit at the school for? This does that make? Leave a mess for people? Douchebaggery.
Was given 8 years on probation as part of his plea deal. It's unlikely he'll ever step foot in a classroom again, too. 2. That's not a bear. In late 2022, a hunter from Vermont accidentally shot and injured another hunter that he thought was a bear. The 35-year-old victim was hit in the abdomen by a single bullet as he was walking through some private wooded property in Huntington. According to the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, a third hunter called 911 to report the incident. The injured victim was taken to the University of Vermont Medical Center to get treated. Luckily, he survived and was reported to be in stable condition. Neither of the men have been identified by authorities, but the 25-year-old hunter who fired the shot is facing charges of negligent use of a gun, reckless endangerment, and felony aggravated assault. Officials reported that nobody involved in the situation was wearing blaze orange, the bright color that most hunters wear to avoid situations like these. In a statement, Game Warden Detective Sergeant Robert Currier said that these accidents are highly preventable. He explained that this case highlights the importance of accurately identifying your target before firing. Currier also said that the Vermont Warden Service encourages the public, especially hunters, to wear blaze orange during hunting season. This case is fairly recent, So the 25-year-old hunter responsible for the accidental shooting hasn't been sentenced yet. 1. Accidental paralysis. A police officer from Maryland was sentenced to serve over a year in jail for his actions in 2019. That left a man paralyzed from the neck down during a routine traffic stop for expired tags. DeMonte Ward Blake complied with commands, but he verbally berated officers. Brian Strong then decided to arrest DeMonte for disorderly conduct, and he was accused of slamming him into the concrete. This ultimately resulted in the suspect's paralysis. But Officer Strong's defense attorney argued that during a struggle with DeMonte, the two of them fell and the injury wasn't intentional. Malcolm Ruff, the attorney representing DeMonte's family, told the judge that before the run-in with Officer Strong, his client was a gregarious 24-year-old, but the accident caused him agonizing pain. DeMonte passed away a year after the incident from an unrelated shooting, and his family sought justice for the officer they felt played a role in his death. In the end, Strong was found guilty of 3 misdemeanors: misconduct in office, reckless endangerment, and second-degree assault. Judge Danica Cotton sentenced him to 20 years behind bars, with all but 1 year suspended. If one of you—
Oh, God. Damn. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's your boy BlastphamousHD. Twisms.